Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me this week. I just want to start this video by saying that getting over someone who is narcissistic and having to go through a really painful divorce, which is what I went through, or a really painful breakup, that is probably one of the hardest things that you can ever go through. And there is a lot of pain, and I'm sure you know that. And there's a lot of stuff that you have to overcome, and you've been through a lot of trauma. And I understand all of that. But I do want to really emphasize, because sometimes we tend to focus on the negative stuff, whether we're talking about trauma or the things that we're having to overcome because of being in that relationship with that person. There are also a lot of amazing things that actually can happen from a really crappy situation. So today I want to focus on that, because I think when you're really knee deep in the midst of excruciating pain and you're coming out of these relationships, it's hard sometimes to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm here to remind you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't care what stage you're in or what you're going through, get a box of tissues. And I want you to listen to this over and over again, because you may not be here today, but this is what's in store for you. The first thing that happens really soon after you kind of go through the initial shock of, oh my God, I was in a relationship with this person. And once you've passed the healing stage a little bit, you enter this beautiful phase called your rebuilding phase. And I talk about this in my masterclass, which I will link down below. First, we talk about healing. We talk about all of your emotional wounds and all the things that you go through when you've gone through trauma prior to this relationship or even in this relationship. But the real fun part happens in the rebuilding phase. This is where you realize that you have lost yourself and you don't really know who you are. And you could be in different stages of your life, whether you're in your 20s or 30s, you were about to have kids, you didn't have kids, you have had kids, now you're an empty nester. It's all different phases that we're all in. But in the rebuilding phase is where you are forced to be alone, but you no longer dread it anymore. And this is where you start to wonder, who am I? You start asking yourself those questions. Who am I? What do I like? What are my passions? What are my hobbies? What do I want to do with my life? What do I want next for myself? And you start to formulate this new identity. Remember what I said, this phase can be really fun, or it can actually be really scary, because you've never really asked yourself some of these questions because you've been so focused on other people or other things. And you still might have a lot of distractions in your life, maybe you're a parent. When I went through my rebuilding phase, I was a parent to a little baby. So I didn't have all the time in the world to dedicate to what does Steph think, what does she need, all of those things. But meaning I didn't have all day, I wasn't retired and I can just totally be selfish and dive into me. I couldn't. I was a parent. I was taking care of someone else, they needed me more than I needed to be doing this right now. So sometimes it's a nice distraction to have. But when I did have time by myself, or even every day, being able to just feed into myself every day and start figuring out who am I and what allows me to tick at my best, what allows me to be my best. And this is where self-parenting starts. This is where you start really understanding who you are, what you need, and you start pouring into yourself. Even if it's just a little bit, just starting to pour into yourself a little bit starts to build trust within yourself, and you start get excited for your future, because as you're pouring into yourself just a little bit at a time, that builds trust within yourself. You start to build confidence within yourself. And as those little increments start to add up, you start to want to tackle on a bigger goal, whether that's, for me, it was starting my business, and then eventually it was dating again and getting into a committed relationship, and the fears and the traumas that we have about that. So there's different goals that you'll set for yourself, because you start taking care of yourself, because you start understanding yourself a little bit more than you've ever had in the past. Number 2, you start getting very, very good at boundaries, because boundaries is just an expression of your standards. And when you start to rebuild yourself, you start to understand your standards a lot more than you ever have before. I don't like when someone does that. I find that disrespectful. And you start to, as you're building that confidence, you start being able to verbally communicate with other people. You're okay with not necessarily losing someone in your life, meaning we're not going to be friends. I don't think we should have a close relationship anymore. But you're starting to you understand that not everyone in your life is meant to be there forever, and certain people are there for certain things, and you're also not trying to get water from a rock anymore with anyone in your life. You start getting very good with boundaries because as you're rebuilding, and you're healing, because you're doing both at the same time. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to do this and then I do this. No, you kind of do them, at the same time. But as you start this process, you realize just how much you have tolerated in the past that you're just not willing to tolerate anymore. And the reason why you're not willing to tolerate it anymore is because you're parenting yourself. And so you're starting to feed into yourself. You're starting to validate yourself. You're starting to soothe yourself. You're starting to be there for yourself emotionally. And you're helping yourself mentally to not stay stuck in places for too long the way you did in the past that would keep you stuck. So when these things start to happen, I can't even explain it. You just become very healthy and confident in yourself that you're not allowing disrespect to happen anymore. And the healthier you are, then the healthier your relationships are. And you start to see just how dysfunctional they have been in the past. You're starting to get very comfortable with saying no and understanding that now someone's giving me guilt. Like, you start to spot things more than you ever have before. And you soothe yourself when you were starting to feel that little bit of guilt that you should not be feeling for maybe saying no. So all of these things start kind of like working one after another, and you start getting a lot of momentum. And these are the good things that come of a really crappy situation. Number 3, your self-worth, like, it goes through the roof. And when your self-worth is really high, then your standards become really high. And then your boundaries, you start to kind of play out your boundaries in relationships with people if you have to. One of the bad things I get, well, not necessarily bad things, I would say uncomfortable things that you kind of go through is there is a period, I think, for all of us where we're in isolation, where it's like we're starting to lose a lot of relationships that we had in our lives because we're going through this rebuilding, awakening phase after going through this relationship, where we're like assessing who we are. And for some reason, life just puts us in this corner alone in order to deal with ourselves. And it's very painful and it's very uncomfortable. And you think you're going to stay there forever. And of course, you're not, but in the midst of it, it's very uncomfortable and you dread it. And this is where people will try to like link up in a relationship or try to fill up their calendar or just, all of these unhealthy things that think that those are things that are going to soothe their uncomfortableness or the pain that they might be experiencing, when in reality, you're starting to be forced to deal with yourself. And you've never really done that before. So you doing this is creating a healthier version of yourself, which means, again, your self-worth starts to increase because now you want more for yourself. Number 4, you are emotionally one of the strongest people you probably know. Now, believe me when I tell you, I can't tell you how many times I said, I'm waving my white flag. Like, I don't need any more lessons. I know I'm strong, but that doesn't mean that you got to keep giving me all this pain. I get it. I absolutely get it. Going through these relationships and everything that you're going through proves how much you can actually take. The good that comes of that, and knowing that, is that any other hurdle that you will ever face in your future, you now, number 1, have the tools to know what to do, how to handle that. Number 2, you'll know that I have been through this, so I can get through that. Like, it builds resilience in you that you just didn't have before, because now you have an experience in your past on your resume of like, look, I did that and I overcame that. And this is how I overcame it. You now know a skill that you didn't have before and how to get through hard times. And even though what you're going through right now, you may think is the hardest thing in the world, who knows what lies in front of you? And you being able to, have that level of emotional strength that you can handle this, even when you feel like you can't handle it. Even though it sucks and we don't want to go through any of this, like, that's priceless, because you will need that at some point, whether it's to help someone else or whether it is to even just help yourself. Number 5, education. The beauty that comes of this is you now know exactly what manipulation looks like. You know what gaslighting looks like, passive aggressive, silent treatment, the list goes on. And you know how to handle yourself when you are, faced with all of those things. You know how to not necessarily, I want to say not get triggered, but you understand what's going on to a T. And that right there allows you to not just be completely asleep and completely reactive to whatever it is that this person is doing. Whether it's the old person, a new person, it doesn't even matter. Number 6, this phase is amazing. I don't want to say it's a phase, but it's just this, you know how to tap into inner peace. Like, you understand inner peace now. You know how to go there if you absolutely need it. Like, I mean, you've been through trauma, so you had to find a place of clarity and certainty and calm and space in order for you to get through what it is that you've been through. So if you've gone through that, even though you may love it and you may want to tap into it every single day, you're meditating 24 hours a day, you've quit your job, you're now a guru somewhere, like you're meditating on a mountain, like maybe your entire world has changed, or maybe not. Maybe you at least know some really great skills and practices that you can teach your kids, that you can teach your friends, that we should have probably learned when we were growing up in order to get ourselves to a healthier place when we really need to. Again, no one wants to go through anything uncomfortable, but that kind of stuff is priceless. That was what you were supposed to learn growing up. Number 7, when the standards go up, when the high worth or self-esteem goes up, you undoubtedly, you're working on your own stuff, your own wounds, like you're healing some key things, like you're breaking generational curses, like you are not repeating the same patterns that everyone else has repeated from, one generation to another. You have broken the cycle. Your relationships for the rest of your life will be completely different. The trajectory of your life in relationships is now changed forever. You will never be attracted to the same person again. You may fall back to, maybe that wound is still there. A wound never completely goes away, but it's always way in the back. But you can at least hear it. You understand it a lot better. And so when it starts to dictate you off course, or it goes, ooh, look, that's attractive, you immediately are like, wait, what? That's attractive? Like, you are not the same person that you once were. So your relationships will look a lot different. Number 8, you have gone from insecure, I don't know who I am, fearful, to a lot more confidence, if not sheer confidence in yourself. You have been in a relationship for a really long time where you walked on eggshells, where you were always second guessing yourself, or you were over apologizing for things that you shouldn't be apologizing for. You were dealing with a person who was just fresh. I mean, like, why are we like that? Or one day they're great and they're romanticizing you and they're a fantasy, and then the next day it's like, what is this up and down? So you went through all of that. And now you're at a place where you're no longer stuck in this uncertainty of yourself. You have power, you know what you want, you know what you think, you know how you feel, you are totally comfortable with verbalizing it to anyone. You are totally comfortable with enforcing boundaries with people. Like, these are not things that you're afraid of doing anymore. These are things that you never have done before. Number 9, you are completely, and this is for the rest of your life as well, it may ebb and flow a little bit. You might get to places where you get a little complacent, a little comfortable, but the skills are always there and you can always tap back into them when you need them. But you are in a growth mindset. You are a growth person for the rest of your life. Again, you may get to a phase of your life where you're a little complacent, or you're a little, honestly, probably in recovery, because there is a phase after going through this where it's like, I'm tired all the time. I don't want to do much of anything. Like, you are in a hibernation rest period because of all the trauma that you've been through. That is completely normal as well, especially if you are highly sensitive, especially if you are an empath. So maybe, you've tapped into a little bit of that phase. Maybe you have been familiar with that phase before, but you are a growth person, and that will never, ever change, because only the people that come out of these relationships that are not victims, that are willing to do the work, those are growth people. And that probably has always been inside of you, but because of the insecurity from what you've been through and the trauma that you've been through, it kind of was stifled a little bit inside of you. And this awakening period that you've had, where you've been left to your own devices, it has jolted something in you that will be there for the rest of your life. You were once insecure. You may have thought you had confidence. You may have thought you were healthy. I thought I was pretty good to go before my ex-husband, but I realized just how much of that was just a mask. How much of it were just defense mechanisms of me trying to survive. Getting to calm and confidence and a real sense of peace once you're there, you want more for yourself. And as you start setting goals, and I do this with my clients all the time because it's kind of the stepping stone towards making your life, changing your life really, and changing things up and finding a great partner and building the business and all that stuff is goal setting. So being able to set goals for yourself and then working through how to actually achieve a goal. Once you set something that you think not necessarily is impossible, but you're just like, okay, this is going to take a lot. Once you set that, after you achieve it, game changer, because like, okay, I know the skills in order to do this. And so all you need to do is re-get that momentum on the next thing that you want for yourself. I can't tell you over the years how many times I've coached someone. They, get to where they want to be. I don't hear from them for like a couple of years, and then they come back because now they're working on a new goal. And it could be a different area of their life. Maybe they found the love of their life, but now they want to start a business, like for example. So it's different areas of your life, but it's always the same skill. And there are going to be some areas of your life that'll be very easy to set those goals and achieve them, and other areas not so much. And that's okay. You at least know the skill, and that's the most important thing. And then all you need at that point is just that helping hand in order to help guide you or hold you accountable or whatever works best for you, because everyone is different, in order for you to follow through to actually achieve something. Number 10, the beauty that comes now is that you have a clean slate. You would walk on eggshells with this person. You were in survival mode, whether you knew it or not. I absolutely did not. You were being gaslit, they're right and center. You were being taken advantage of. They talked down to you, whatever it is that they were doing to you that is under the heading of you were in a traumatic experience. You're no longer there anymore. And now you have a completely clean slate. I literally get goosebumps when I say this because you have a chance to actually change your life and where your life goes from here. The partner that you pick next, the life that you have next, everything will be different. And if you're watching this and you're still really knee deep in the healing phase, you just shed a tear, even just by me saying that. And I know what that feels like. But trust me when I tell you, it's winter here in the US. So we are in the depths of the healing season. The sun will shine again. The clouds will go away. The blue sky will show. This is no different for the course of your life. You may be in a snowy, rainy season of life right now. You will not stay here forever because this too shall pass. I know divorces and breakups and narcissistic abuse and dealing with a toxic person, I know it's probably one of the hardest things that you will ever go through in the course of your life, but this is the only thing that you will probably ever go through that will teach you amazing, beautiful lessons and absolutely can change your life for the better. So I hope that this inspired you. I hope it motivated you. I hope it gave you comfort or whatever it is that you were looking for it to give you. I hope it did. If you are not a subscriber already, can I please encourage you to subscribe to the channel, like down below, click that notification bell, all the things. I know on our feeds now, I don't know what is going on with YouTube, but even for me, the people that I follow, I sometimes cannot find them on my feeds, or I'll just find like one video of theirs. So every now and then, just check me out in your little subscriber hub area and, binge watch if you need to. That's usually what I do. I'm like, oh, look, she's posted 4 videos and I didn't watch any of those. I hope you are well in this season of life that you're in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, guys.